Welcome to Wiseheads, where some of the sharpest minds in business share practical thinking to help you build a better business and make better decisions. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Georgina Milne. Over the past 18 months, George has been working deep inside the world of frontier technology in Silicon Valley, helping founders develop brand strategies and positioning for businesses, building everything from advanced AI to humanoid robots. And that creates some fascinating challenges. What happens when your client is a 25-year-old genius building something most people barely understand? How do you develop a strategy when the product is still largely an idea? How do you make incredibly complex technology meaningful to ordinary humans? And as technology makes it easier for every brand to look increasingly polished, how do you create one that actually stands out? George, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Adam, for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Take us into this world. What kinds of businesses and founders have you found yourself working with over the past 18 months?
The past 18 months, I have really dived quite deep into the world of frontier tech and emerging tech, largely based out of Silicon Valley. My background is strategy, brand strategy, so positioning, naming, tone of voice, narrative, developing those kind of things, working with companies like humanoid in-home robotics, quite a few AI-led robotic companies, lots of self-recursive or next-generational AI SaaS products or platforms, lots of consumer tech, nuclear fusion, and also with the VCs that fund these businesses.
What do these founders actually like to work with?
I'm about 20 years into my career, and I think you spend a lot of time, I did at least, learning the language of business. Your clients are always these older white men called John, often, that's the vibe. And I've spent 20 years emulating that language and that tone and that posture. And now all of a sudden, you're working with people who are younger than I am. And a lot of them, not all of them, they're intentionally very anti-bureaucratic. They don't want to look or speak or sound or operate like existing big businesses. So they're actively pushing against that. They don't have a CMO. They don't have a marketing department. They don't have a marketing head. More often than not, I'm working directly into the founders. Most of them don't have a marketing background. And so again, it's about breaking down principles that if you've worked in marketing or brand for a long time, you just understand to be true and make it understandable and compelling and do all of that at pace because the projects move really, really quickly.
You mentioned that these young founders are very deliberately trying to not be big business. Why is that?
There are a few different reasons. Some of the younger founders I've worked with have a very strong moral compass that is driving the goals of their business. They're very impact driven. And I think they look to some of the benchmark tech founders. And we've had this conversation really explicitly. It's, can you deliver brilliance and impact in the world and not be an arsehole? And there are no benchmarks for that.
Where do you find a lot of these founders tend to have blind spots? What can somebody understand about their world but completely miss about building a brand?
Obviously, if you are creating cutting edge tech, you assume that people care about the technicalities, the nuance, the features and benefits. I would argue that's the same of most clients, though, that you have to elevate them out of that and you have to talk to them about telling their story, finding their impact. What's the human value within all of this? I think another big blind spot is timelines, about how long it takes to answer some of these big questions. If you're asking people, what is the truth of your business? What do you want the long-term impact to be? How are you meaningfully different from other people in market? They are not answers that you can quickly find. The CEO can vibe code a new website over a weekend. They look at a timeline of even 3 weeks for a strategy sprint and they say, we don't have that time. Founders underestimate how long it takes for them to question the intent of what they're there to do.
You've described developing strategies for businesses where the product is sometimes little more than a well-funded idea. Where on earth do you start?
Some of the biggest questions we put to them are, who are you? What is your personality? And they haven't had those conversations whenever possible. I try and bring in the voice of the customer in whatever way you can. Marketing 101 says you are not your customer. And I think there are a lot of company founders that that is news to them. They do need to be told that there is different perceptions about them or zero perceptions about them in market. Any way to disentangle, I think, the founder's understanding of what their business is and the market's perception of it.
How do you tell the difference between a genuinely powerful vision and a very compelling story about something that may never happen?
With a bit of perspective, I don't think it matters. Because every new product or business or innovation sits somewhere along that spectrum. I think you just have to support the founders or the business as best you can with the vision that they have. The one thing I do say a lot to founders is the bigger the promise, the bigger the burden of proof. Because I think if you go to market and you say, there is nothing like us, this is revolutionary, then people want that backed up with proof points. I would never want to launch a client into market with this huge claim that could immediately be pulled apart. It's just ensuring that you support the boldness of their vision, but make sure that they are ready to backfill that with proof.
Can brand overcome that proof and be a shortcut to making something true?
No, I don't think so. This is something I've dealt with a couple of clients really recently. Huge amounts of vision and grit and excitement for the businesses that they were creating, but very little in terms of actual product that sat behind it. And you do not want to create a brand that doesn't live up to the vision. Hype cycles can kill a business so quickly. There have been too many examples of launches that fall flat. If the product doesn't match the brand and the customer experience doesn't live up to the promise, I genuinely don't think that the company has an ability to succeed. Good founders have to have an insane level of belief in what it is that they're doing. Unfortunately, there is always this idea with founders that build it and they will come. I've created this incredible breakthrough, and the minute the world finds out about it, I'm rich. There is so much more to building a brand and building awareness. Companies can be undereducated or under-equipped in terms of how challenging the road ahead is going to be. Our role is to be really clear about the market context that they're operating in.
How do you build a positioning with enough certainty to mean something when the technology underneath it could have completely changed within 6 to 12 months from now?
I personally think the future of where strategy and creative and solid human-led strategy is what it needs is specificity, because I think that's what all the LLMs and AI can't give you. It can give you something that makes sense, but there's no specificity around who the company is and what they do well. Branding is about understanding what the business is at its center and trying to create something as timeless as possible. The core of the brand needs to be built around why that business exists, and that should withstand technological changes to a certain amount. If you build something that can withstand market dynamics and tech changes certainly over the year ahead, and then it's up to your brand comms and your experiences and all of the other touch points to flex in line with what consumers need at that time. So I don't actually think it's changed. Even though the rate of change is speeding up, brands still need to be built to be relatively timeless and enduring.
When you're dealing with technology that most people struggle to understand at all, what have you learned about simplifying something without dumbing it down too much?
It's all about finding the human truth or the human impact. Technology, really, it's about what it enables. And one of the clients I worked with was a robotics company building in-home robots. And their name is brilliant. The name is Sunday. And I think that is so evocative of what it is that they enable. It gives you your Sunday back so that you can chill and hang with family and you're not doing your jobs because this robot is doing it. But the point isn't the technology, it's what it enables for you. So it's the same across sectors, but it's what is that real human kind of benefit? What's the thing that feels compelling and memorable and resonant from a very human perspective? Why is it exciting? What can it do for them?
Do founders of a new product within a category sometimes struggle with simplicity because they're closer to it and they want everyone to understand as much as they do?
Regardless of what type of business I'm working for, the key thing I will do is define the what, how, and why. And it has to fit inside a tiny little box, so you can only get one sentence, maybe 6 to 8 words tops for each of those areas. What do you do? How do you do it? Why does it matter? And strategy is sacrifice. And you lose a lot of really interesting, compelling ideas in that exercise of getting to what, how, and why. But it's critical because without that prioritization exercise, you do end up with founders who tell the world about the kind of technical nuance of whatever the product is, and people don't care. Customers don't care about your brand. They can only remember 2 or 3 key positioning pillars, work out what those things are, and repeat them ad nauseum. But you have to lead with story, and you have to lead with emotion. You have to lead with the why.
Let's say you have a founder who truly believes they have 5 or 6 key reasons why their product is different from every other product. How do you get them to narrow that down to the number of front runners you believe you should be anchoring a brand around?
So it depends if they're stepping into a market where there are competitors that already exist. You look at who's owning what and where there might be white space to play. You have to look at the customer perspective, and then you look at what customers care about. And so often it's as simple as going out and talking to them and finding out that the thing that they're really looking for isn't the thing that you wanted to lead with. Sell something that people want. And often it's not the thing that you expect.
What's the shift that takes a story from, look at this extraordinary technology we've built, to here's why this matters to you?
You define the brand idea, that compelling idea that sits at the heart of what it is that you're building. And it is inherently evocative and inherently emotional and led by story, but it needs to be true. The minute you elevate the way that founders think about their company from a set of product features and specs to helping them understand what that big compelling idea is, they can take that and run with it. But often that is the piece that they're missing and they don't even know that they need.
Some of the most successful technology companies, certainly in my observation, seem to convince people that a future that they're promising is inevitable long before it arrives. How much of a strategy is actually helping people believe in a future that doesn't yet exist?
It's a really important question and something that I think a lot of emerging tech is getting really wrong. They've rushed to almost assuming that everyone wants the same future. Thinking about robotics, and you see these uncanny valley campaign concepts or brands where they put a humanoid robot walking amongst us and project this idea that this is normal and wanted, without doing any of that work around how do people actually want this new technology to show up in their world. There's just this massive assumption and leap to the endpoint of this is what the world will look like that consumers are starting to push back against. And I think that's something I'm excited about with a newer cohort of founders coming through. I'm hoping that we get a more diversified viewpoint of what the future actually looks like.
In the tech space, maybe 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less, we would see AI mode now available, or now with AI was a big push. Do you feel like we've already plateaued and we're now heading back down towards where human is going to be seen to be premium and special? Are we already becoming fed up with AI as our customer service representatives on websites, for example?
You're right that customers are already pushing against ineffective AI and a desire for more human tactility and access to people. I think that will continue. There's a real pushback against AI across a lot of use cases. Large organizations are held together by the intellect and the instinct and the expertise of their people, and I don't think anyone's telling that story very clearly or even trying to at all. And I think there's a massive opportunity there across a lot of sectors to go back to what makes them unique, and often it is the people behind the tech.
What's more important right now for businesses? Being found or being chosen?
It has to be being chosen, but only if the numbers mean that, enough people are finding them then to be kind of qualified down to choose them. I don't think you can necessarily disentangle them, but a business isn't going to survive if they have huge awareness but no conversion. You have to sell the thing.
What's one piece of advice you would have for either a founder or a business leader that they can take away from today's episode?
I mean, it's the things that I just always say. You are not your customer. Go and find out what they actually want, and just have the bravery to have some level of conviction and to be specific. Specificity is so important, and I think that drives so much value. Strategy is sacrifice. I say that to every single client, and it's really hard getting to that prioritized perspective of who you are. It can be really painful prioritizing one audience over another or one product over another, but that is the essence of strategy. And it's something that only you can do. I don't think you can outsource it to a marketing team or an LLM or to an agency. I think as a founder, you need to be the one driving that conversation, obviously with great creative or strategic support, but you need to invest the time and the energy into understanding what makes you different and really getting quite specific about your value. Once you've done that, then it unlocks everything. from there.
What I find fascinating is that despite working with technology that feels like it belongs in the future, so much of the challenge comes back to very human fundamentals. Making choices, turning complexity into something people can understand and care about. Have the discipline to decide what you want to stand for, and having the confidence to be distinctive at precisely the moment when technology is making it easier for everyone to look increasingly alike. George, thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much, Adam. Loved your questions, loved the conversation, and look forward to chatting again.